everyone. I know that there's a lot going on in the world right now, but June is National PTSD Awareness Month, and so I wanted to make a series of short videos that describe what it's like for me living with PTSD. I know that everybody's experience is a little bit different, so you may know other people with PTSD who say, oh, that's not what it's like for me, or you may have PTSD and you may think, oh, that isn't what it's like for me, and that's okay. Everybody sort of processes things a little bit differently. And so today I really wanted to talk about flashbacks, which I think is probably the thing that most people think about when they think about PTSD. And I actually have three different types of flashbacks. I prefer, for some reason, to call them intrusive memories rather than calling them flashbacks. So if you ever hear me talking about intrusive memories, it's really flashbacks. So the first kind I have is the typical kind that everybody thinks about when they think about PTSD, where my mind thinks that I'm back in that moment of trauma. So, my heart starts to pound. I start to feel really panicked. I might try and fight off the person who's causing me the trauma because in my mind, I'm back in that moment. And I think, again, that that's probably what most people think of when they think of flashbacks. But I have two other types of flashbacks. And so the second kind I have is what they call a body memory. And this maybe, this one's a little more difficult to talk about, but for me, it's important for people to know. And so I always like to start out by saying, imagine that you're on a roller coaster at a theme park and you're going up and down and you're sort of getting like that queasy feeling in your stomach, and you can't really control it. Well, I get that queasy sort of a feeling, but instead of getting it in my stomach, I get it in the palms of my hands. My hands start to feel queasy. I don't know how else to explain this to you. And so for me, usually when that happens, I'm having a flashback of being raped. And so what I can feel in the palm of my hands is I feel the sensation of my attacker's hip bones as I'm trying to push him off of me. And so if you're out with me and you see me starting to shake my hands or I'm rubbing my hands, a lot of times I do this with my fingers. Sometimes I'll rub my hands on my pant legs. It's because I'm having a flashback at that moment and I can feel that feeling in my hands and I really hate it. And so I'm trying to get rid of the feeling. I'm trying to make it go away by feeling something else in my hands, like pushing on them or rubbing them or trying to stretch out my fingers to make that feeling go away. So that's the second type of flashback that I have. The third type of flashback that I have is maybe a little, I think this is probably the hardest one to explain to people, but I do something called dissociate, which everybody does to a certain degree. If you've ever been driving in your car and you all of a sudden realize that you don't remember driving the last 3 or 4 miles, then you have dissociated because your mind just sort of shuts down and you're just sort of moving and doing things like automatically. So people with PTSD, some people don't dissociate, but other people have varying degrees and varying types of dissociation. I do something called derealizing, which is where a thought will come into my mind of something that's happened to me in my past. And rather than just thinking the thought and then the thought just goes away and I go about my day, my mind thinks that I'm back in that moment. And so my brain shuts down to try and protect myself. And so for me, what it feels like is that I can see and hear everything that's going on around me. So like if we're out to dinner or something like that, I can still hear you. I can still see you. I might even still be responding to you. But it's like I'm inside of a box in my own mind and I'm looking out at you and you look far away or dreamy. I like to describe it as you look gauzy to me. That because I'm just actually not there in the moment. And a lot of times I can't respond. It's really sort of really a dangerous situation to be in because if something happens to me in that moment, my mind is shut down. So I don't have a way of defending myself, which is actually a learned response because that's what my mind did during my trauma was my mind shut down to protect me from what was happening. And so now it continues to use that as a tool. So the derealization for me can last anywhere from just like a few moments. The longest I've ever recorded it happening or realized that it was happening was an incident that lasted over 2 hours. And I hope to talk about that in a later video. But those are the types of flashbacks that I have, the 3 different types. When I first started therapy, I was having flashbacks 30 to 50 times a week. And through therapy, they've really decreased, and I've learned some tools to kind of work with them and deal with them, which has really been amazing. So in closing this video, I just want to say that if you've had trauma in your life, don't be afraid to reach out for help. My therapist has made a huge difference in my life. I wouldn't even be able to make this video if it wasn't for the work that we've done over the last 1.5 years. And so please don't be afraid to reach out for help. Help is available to you, and it can really change your life. So I hope to make more videos. If you have questions about PTSD or you want to know what it's like, put them in the comments below and I'll try and answer questions about what it's like to live with this. But those are the first things that I want you to know about PTSD. Thanks.